Listen, this Urban Meyer situation is it's sad. It's sad to talk about. I feel for Urban Meyer. He's going through a lot right now, and he's the laughing stock of everybody right now. So it's a tough life that you live, when you're one of the greatest college coaches to ever do it. When you're trying to take on the toughest job in the NFL and one of the worst franchises in all football with horrific ownership that wants to move your team out of the country every single year, and you're coming off a 1-17 season, and your roster is absolutely terrible, and all you've been a winner for your whole life, and now you have to lose, and that's very tough for a winner to have to lose consistently and still keep their self-esteem about them. I think that Urban Meyer, he wanted to give this a try in the NFL. He's realizing that in the NFL, you're stuck. You have no flexibility with what you can do. In college, you can always recruit and get quarterbacks in the transfer portal. You can get wide receivers. If a player is going to go and talk behind your back to reporters, you can cut that player, or you could just bench him, and then that player will go to another Big Ten school now with transfer rules. Um, Urban Meyer knows about talent. He's a really good talent evaluator. And Urban Meyer this year is even utilizing Lawrence and getting the most out of Lawrence. And looking at this defense is even getting a little bit better. I think that some of his hires have been question marks, like Charlie Strong, and also the offensive coordinator, Darrell Bevel. That was with the Lions. They're okay coordinators, but that defense was just absolutely atrocious against Cincinnati. And then the team doesn't have mental toughness. I mean, they're winning against the Cardinals and against Cincinnati, and they can't finish games. But that's the mark of a losing team and a losing culture, and that takes time to fit. It takes time to win these tight games in the fourth quarter. But you look at Jacksonville, if they would have beaten Arizona, who's now considered one of the best teams in the NFL. They were up 24-19 on those guys, and nobody wants to talk about it. But Urban's a punching bag, and he's a punching bag because he hired his nephew, and his nephew was accused of domestic violence. Urban Meyer, too, at Florida, he would sign players that have talent but have major problems off the field. Aaron Hernandez was there. A lot of different guys were there. And that's the thing about Urban Meyer. And then many people believe that Urban Meyer is a liar, that he's perfectly healthy, and that Urban Meyer fakes his sideline antics just to leave places, and that he's not actually feeling stressed and getting panic attacks, which I think that looking at Urban Meyer on those sidelines at Ohio State, it looked like the guy was getting a panic attack. And the thing about Urban Meyer is that he did get bored, being, in the studio there, and his mind is always restless, restless, restless. And even though he's one of the greatest coaches in football ever, his personal demons are tough. And I think everybody has personal demons. I know I have a ton of them that I'm not going to share publicly, but I think that a lot of people do, and a lot of people are comfortable sharing that. And I think everybody goes through certain situations, and even people that might have a lot of money and power. I feel that it's popular for people to gang up on them and make fun of their shortcomings and go and film them at an inopportune time. I mean, the person who filmed the video, he really had nothing to lose but gain, and he realized Urban was in trouble. I mean, now you could look at the conspiracy theories, which is the conspiracies would make this situation more light, as if Shelley Meyer knew ahead of time that this would happen. If Urban wants to go back to USC, if this was all an accident, it's very sad. It puts them, it causes strain in your relationship with your wife. It happens in your hometown, which you're very embarrassed about. Um, and it's hard to believe. I mean, did the girl have motive in this? Is she an Ohio State or USC fan? Did somebody slip something in Urban's drink? Did the family want to put this out there so Khan would try to fire him? Because Urban's probably getting tired of Khan. I mean, listen, Khan can't keep a coach for more than 3 years. And I mean, that ownership group has just been a dumpster fire, has been awful. Half their games are overseas. It's a joke what Jacksonville has become in the last few years since they did have that team and make the AFC championship, but this is just not a perennial power. It's not that well funded of a team. And again, it's the worst job maybe in the whole league. And for Urban to do this, he wanted to take the underdog role because he's always been the top dog. He wanted to challenge himself with the toughest job in professional sports, trying to resurrect a dead franchise in Jacksonville. And he was off to a decent start. Should he have taken the flight home? Probably yes. But for people that have taken flights or bus rides with teams and of that nature, it sometimes sucks to conform to those, rigid guidelines. So, players, they oftentimes want to leave and get to other places. And as long as you show up and perform, which the Jags did perform in Cincinnati. I mean, they were 7-point underdogs. They had a great chance to win. Wasn't Urban's fault that ref caused a terrible penalty. Wasn't really Urban's fault that, I guess it was Urban's fault that the defense was horrific, but that could have been prior drafting. And this defense is just terrible. This defense makes me sick. So, you look at Urban Meyer in Jacksonville now, and it could be a little buyer's remorse. If I were him, I would have signed a 2-year contract. I wouldn't have taken that much money considering your health problems. You can always be out of a job. I would have went up to upper management first. It's just too risky to take a head coaching job when you're feeling like these kind of stresses and anxieties. I don't know why he wouldn't just go out to Wyoming and take like a job in the middle of the country, with beautiful landscape and a relaxing environment like a Wyoming or a Montana, and try to like enjoy the art of coaching again. Like even coach high school football, like coach and enjoy the art of coaching without all this media BS, without being in the limelight, the spotlight, without having to go to every supermarket and be in that fishbowl in Jacksonville and have everybody just dying to see you and dying to talk to you. I mean, when you have these types of stresses and anxieties, you probably would want to get away. A lot of people would want to get away from the noise. Now, maybe he welcomes that noise and distraction in his life, but it would just cause stress to be on a losing team, losing culture in a fishbowl, small town like Jacksonville. It just is a puzzling move. I guess he wanted to do it because before he died, he wanted to see to himself, could I take on this NFL giant? Could I do this in the NFL? And what he's discovering is all these are outside of his power. I mean, the roster building in college, you can create your own team, you can recruit, you can control your own destiny. In the NFL, you're stuck. If you're Mike Zimmer in Minnesota, you can't go replace Kirk Cousins. If you're Oakland and you're the Raiders, you can't replace Derek Carr. You can't replace your quarterbacks. You can't get new wide receivers, tight ends. In college, you're always recruiting your own guys. You're recruiting 3-star guys that nobody's seeing. And in the NFL, it's about paying. Players are doing their own thing. They're really hard to coach. You're coaching guys that have egos and money now. It's completely different than molding guys, than being a role model. And in college, they're going to be more receptive. When they're 18 years old, it's easier to talk to someone than to talk to a 28-year-old that thinks that he has his life figured out. It's much easier to talk to a 19-year-old, and when they're humble, than when they're making money, they're driving cars and getting crazy and wild. So you're already seeing it in Jacksonville. I mean, guys are snitching behind his back to the media. Guys are trying to set him up. The media doesn't like Urban Meyer. It's obvious from that. If Brendan Staley did this, or Bruce Arians, I mean, nobody would be talking about this. But because it's Urban, because he has the Aaron Hernandez, because he hired his nephew and was too loyal to a fault, even though his nephew ended up being a guy that was convicted, I believe, of some real physical harm to his own wife at Ohio State. So there's a lot that goes in the Urban of the character. And has Urban been perfect? No. Does Urban have serious stress issues? Yes. Is it sad for Jacksonville Jaguar fans a little bit? It is. And it's a very tough existence for them all the time. But the fact is, they've had a little bit of joy this season. They've seen Lawrence progress. They've seen this team play competitive football for the first 4 weeks of the season against the Cardinals and against really a decent schedule when you look at the Broncos, the Bengals, and the Cardinals. The combined record of those three teams is like 9-1. And in the first game, it's the first damn game. So, looking pretty much at the Jet, looking at Urban Meyer, yeah, you feel bad for Urban. You feel bad for the relationship, with his wife and just all the arguments that are going to transpire and having his news and being disgraced in front of your hometown. You do feel bad for a guy like Urban Meyer in that sense, and the fact that he was drinking and that. Is Urban the blame? He is to blame in the sense he didn't take the flight home. He was drinking too much alcohol. He didn't consult his wife about this. They probably have a closed relationship. It's like all this other stuff outside of football. So it's a wild time. It's emotional. Some of it's funny. Some of it's not that funny. It depends what angle you choose to do. It depends on the mood of the day. But you look at Jacksonville right now, and it's going to be interesting. Is Urban enjoying himself? That's what I want to know. It's all about Urban. Does Urban like coaching in the NFL? Does he have a good relationship with these owners? Is the relationship still going well? I don't know. It just seems like there's a lot of people in Jacksonville that don't like Urban and Urban doesn't like them. And that's a huge problem for Urban going forward. So we'll have to monitor the situation. I think that he could still be a good coach, but I don't know if it's in his best interest. I don't know if he wants to go through with this NFL thing. And I don't know if his health and his stress is going to allow him to really be a lead at this job, because I think he really has good football IQ. He's won at a big time level. He's hired NFL guys around him. His team's becoming more competitive. And the malcontents, if he were to stay on the ship for a long time, the malcontents would eventually leave and he would get his style of guy, his style of draft pick, his style of player that would not, go to Michael Silver and would highlight all of his negatives in a day. I don't think anybody listening to this would want to have somebody following them and reporting all of their lowlights on and putting them on blast behind someone's back. I don't think that anybody really needs that. You want to have transparent people in your life, not people that are going to sell you off. So that's that on Urban Meyer. An emotional situation, a wild, wild story. Was he drugged? Was the girl a USC fan? Was the guy filming this related to USC? Is this all on purpose to get out of Jacksonville? Does Shelley want to move back to LA and doesn't mind Urban grinding with this young girl? Did this young girl meet Shelley Meyer? There's just so much here to unpack, and it's an absolutely wild time in Jacksonville.